So Michael Alessi, you're back at a big time event, World Supercross Round 1. You've been away from the spotlight for a while, so what's brought you back here to the race Supercross?
Yeah, it's been since full time was 2017 was my last full Supercross season, so it's been quite a few years, and kind of just stayed home, had a couple of kids with my wife, and kind of been riding, and I was like, man, I still feel damn as good as I did 10 years ago, and the team reached out, talked to me about maybe doing World Supercross back in April, and I was straight up with them. I was like, not really into it. Like, honestly, like I haven't raced Supercross in quite a few years, and not just that, but I haven't raced at 250 since 2007. So it's been a long time. And so I told them, hey, let's ride a few days and see how I feel. If I still feel comfortable, then we'll go from there. And right when I got on the bike, I was very comfortable and picked up Supercross pretty quick again, which was good. So at that point, it was like, let's go do it. Let's go race the world stage and do the World Supercross Series.
And obviously you'd seen it last year and you must have been pretty impressed with your dad. You the inside scoop on it, so was that a factor too, that it looked pretty
100%.
cool and fun today?
You look at the series, it's very first class, professional. Everything is organized, everything is clean. And it's basically a series you want to be a part of. You can just tell that it has that prestige feel to it, and you just know that you're getting treated well and fairly between all the riders, the teams, and everybody in the paddock. So for me, Smart Top Moto Concepts, like I said, reached out and provided me with this ride, and I'm going to take full advantage of it. And I got a great mechanic. My mechanic Cole's done a great job. You can see the bike is absolutely beautiful, red, white, and blue, the theme from America. So yeah, we look good, so let's go racing.
And what are your expectations? Have you any goals or just a ride?
Bro, I don't even have an expectation. Like, I haven't raced Supercross in, what it's been, 7 years?
Yeah.
I mean, I've stepped away from the sport for a while. So let's just see how we do this first one, and then we'll go from there and get ready for Asia the end of September, and then start building on a goal.
I know your starts still like they used to be, or can we see some Mike Alessi home shots?
I would hope so, all right? In a short race like we have with the 6-6-10, I feel like, obviously, as a racer, like not just myself, but all the other racers, we put in work, right? We know what it takes to be at this highest level of the sport, and you have to be a good starter, especially at these races, to be competitive and have a good chance at winning not just the GP, but the overall for the championship, right? So being consistent, being smart, maximizing your points each moto, whether it be a 5th or a 4th, or our first turn fall, just being able to get back to the top 10, like maximizing those points so that way you're still in the championship run when it comes to Australia. So like I said, I feel like starts are a huge part of it, and I'm a pretty good starter.
Just looking back at your career, you came into the sport at 16 with a lot of hype. You had a podium on a 450, I think it was Millville.
It was. So I started at Millville, and it's kind of funny. I was talking to the legend Chad Reed, and I was like, back in 2004, I was like, dude, I was racing you, and I got a podium against you and Carmichael, and I was on the podium with Wyndham, and I'm just looking back, I'm like, that's almost 20 years ago, and I'm still doing it at almost 36 years old, and just having fun, enjoying it. And I still enjoy the training part of it and the road biking, the gym, just putting in the work. And for my age, it's pretty interesting to see that I still have that drive and I still want to do it, right? A lot of guys lose that spark and kind of that interest to keep fulfilling that work ethic, that day in and day out pressure that you have to put on yourself. And for me, I still enjoy it. So I feel like that's why I'm still here doing it.
And did seeing Crowley and those guys ride into their mid-30s, did that sort of give you any belief that you could actually come back at a good level?
I feel like, that's kind of an interesting question. So I feel like as the years have gone, like 26 to 30 was like the limit.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the last 5 years, it's really changed to early to mid-30s, you're done. And I feel like just with the technology of the way the riders can recover, ice baths and nutrition and physical work on the bike and knowing how to recover properly, I feel like that's a huge part of why the athletes are extending their careers more into their mid to late 30s. It's not crazy to think that riders could still race to 40. Even in the next 3 to 5 years, it's possible. So I think as long as you stay injury-free, obviously is a huge part of it. And staying with your mind, I feel like the mind too is a huge part of it. And once your mind starts to go, then it's like, okay, maybe it's time to be done. And for me, I've never had that. Like I'm done. Like I don't want to do this no more. It was just one of those things where it was about 2017, at pretty much my last year racing Supercross. I was just physically, mentally, just kind of over it, and took a few years away from the sport. Took a step back. And like I said, had 2 kids with my wife, and we're going to be celebrating 20 years together in September, which is cool. And just got back on the bike and kept riding and training. I was like, I think I still want to do this. I want to go back and race a world Supercross on the biggest stage and the biggest stage there is. And here we are, Birmingham, round 1.
So going back to that Millville podium, you had the hype.
It was Steel City. My
City?
Millville debut was a complete flop.
I'm getting confused with
it was a flop. Like, let's be honest, it was terrible. It was a
Steel City,
DNF, which was terrible. Came back 2 weeks later, left the Believe the Hype shirts back at home, which I want to make sure everybody knows that was not me. I did not make those shirts. That was DMXS Radio back in the day. So came back 2 weeks later, a little bit more humble approach, and just kind of, let's just try to be top 10. And went 5-4 for 3rd overall on the podium with Carmichael and Wyndham. And actually that day, Carmichael won the championship that day, which was pretty cool, and continuing the 24-0 streak going into the last round at Glen Helen. So that was a huge moment for me. They had big old beards on the podium. I'm just this pimple-faced little 16-year-old kid. I was barely 16. I was 16 years old in 3 months. So it's crazy to think like what I've done and where I've been, and I've had a long career for sure. And I might not be as fast as I once was when I was 17, 18, 19 years old. I still feel like I got a little bit in me, and if we can pull those 800 starts and be up front, put ourselves in a good position and put on a good show for the fans. That's what they really want to see, and some entertainment.
Was there a lot of pressure going into your pro seasons then with KTM? Obviously, your dad had put a lot of work investment.
Yeah.
That 3rd place only probably adds to the hype, and then Ryan Villapoto emerged, who you had been beating in amateurs.
Yeah.
Then he was the guy to beat outdoors. Talk me through what that was like from your perspective at 16, 17 to deal with all that.
Honestly, it's part of the sport. The pressure's there, and they say you're only as good as the competition you race. And I can honestly say I've raced the world's best racers in this sport, whether it be Carmichael, Chad Reed, James Stewart, RV, Dunge, Kennard. You go down the list. There's been so many good riders, and at one point I was able to either beat them in a heat race or in a practice times at the race. And kind of funny, actually, I remember the one and only time I beat Carmichael was in a practice in 07 at Redbud, and it was literally by like 0.1 of a second in practice. And we were pitted across from each other, and he comes back after practice, he throws the bike up against the this middle piece, and he's throwing the helmet, he's tossing the goggles, he's mad.
Sure.
And I'm literally just across, like, watching this all happen, and I'm thinking to myself, it was only 0.1 of a second I beat you by. But to him, that's Carmichael. He was ruthless. He wanted to be the best every time he was on the track, and you have to commend him for that, because that's just what made him that gritty racer, that he wouldn't take no shit, and that's why he always won. And like I said, I've raced the world's best riders that this sport has ever seen, and a lot of people don't understand that, or maybe.
Was that difficult for you to accept when Villapoto was winning? Like, you're looking back now and going, yeah, he was amazing, but at the time, was it like, what is happening here?
I mean, RV was a great racer, don't get me wrong. They're all good racers. You just look at like a little thing here in 05, would have been a championship against Ivan, possibly in title.
Yeah.
Then against RV, if I didn't break my clutch lever off in 06, that's possibly another title. And then in 07 with Langston, I had my gas cap pop off. That was another, bad finish. And I only lost the title by, I think, 14 or 15 points to Langston that last moto in 07 for the 450 championship. So, and then obviously racing Bubba in 08 had that big Redbud crash. But until then, I was the second place guy. But you just look at my career, and it's just like a little thing here or there could have just.
Does that still frustrate you? Like, you feel like you should have been a national
Oh,
outdoor champ at least?
100%. I mean, if you look at it, there, the 05, 06, 07, and then I had the 09 with my knee.
Yeah.
Like, I had a 40-point lead when I broke my knee, and
That's right.
this is how it goes. That's part of racing, right? You got to take the good with the bad, and sometimes the bad just it brings you down as far as those points. And so, I mean, looking back on it, there's definitely 4 championships that I could have had to my name had things gone just a little bit different here or there. And no disrespect to Ivan, to RV and Langston, like they're great riders. And I had fun racing and battling them in my years of trying to chase that championship and go for it.
So after, I think it was the year with Tedesco, you had that run in with the last round with the bike, the crash and all that. I think it was the week after you came to Desert Martin for the RSGP.
Yep.
And Mark DeRuver passed you and waved you on. I don't know if you even noticed that. He waved you on to keep up. What were your thoughts coming to there after that madness of then seeing DeRuver?
When I came to that race, obviously I knew that the European riders didn't know. I mean, they knew who I was, but they just didn't understand how I was going to race because of the Ivan incident a week ahead of us. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to race my race, do my thing, which was good because on Saturday I won the qualifying race. And I think after that they were kind of like, man, this guy's actually kind of decent. Like, he just, I mean, there's Caroli was there, DeRuver, Rattray. I mean, Philip Hartz, we're talking guys in their prime that were like, they were the guys, like legit. I was a just barely turned 17 years old kid. And, I won the qualifying race on Saturday. And then the first moto I got, I think, second or third to DeRuver, right behind DeRuver. And then the second moto I got a bad start and fell on the first lap with another rider and had to come from way back and just missed the podium. So that was a bummer. But as far as like the Desert Martin, I actually enjoyed that track and the atmosphere, the people, the crowd was just insane. And
it made it that much exciting because you were there with the DeRuver VU and all that.
It was so cool. I mean, Mark was, we're good friends even still to this day. In that moment, he was just like he was just like antagonizing, like, come on, let's go, like, come on, come on, American, like, let's do this. And the crowd was hyped; they were into it and cheering and going nuts. So,
how did you find the whole? Obviously, you were used to the US way of doing things. To go to just a one random weekend after losing the title, how did you find the whole GP experience, the level there compared to what you just came from?
Riders are fast. I mean, no matter where you go, whether it's America, Europe, Canada, Australia, the top riders are the top riders. They're fast. And like I alluded to, when you're at that level, you're putting in the work, you know what it takes, and you leave no stone unturned, right? So that's what makes the top guys top guys. Did
you ever think of doing a full world championship? Were you ever offered, because your outdoor speed was like good enough to be there?
I was always America, and it just, I was with KTM, Red Bull KTM 05 to 07, and then I replaced Carmichael at Suzuki in 08 when he retired, in 09, and then went back to Red Bull KTM 10 and 11. So at that point, it was like the good meat of my career was in America. And at that time, 2012, I was sort of say like on the downward part of my career, but I still had good finishes, was racing Dungey for the title in 12, got a moto win at Washougal, which was huge, and finished second in the championship. And and here we are, 2023, July 1st, and we're still racing.
Do you think people forgot how good you were because you didn't get that
for sure,
title?
100%. I feel like
so long ago when you were in your prime.
I feel like
you were legit. Like
people don't really understand. Like, okay, so I've been racing professional since 2004, and maybe a lot of people don't realize it or understand. Like the dudes I had to race were legit,
all-time guys,
like legit.
A lot,
and like Carmichael, Stewart, like Bubba Stewart, Carmichael, Reed. I mean, you're talking about legends of the sport. And to be able to not just race those guys, but like be at least competitive and try to beat them, dude, it took a lot of work. And some of the best races of my career was that 2007 outdoor season, racing Carmichael and Bubba. I was on the podium with both those guys in Redbud 07, and dude, it just takes so much work, right? It's a never-ending work, focus. You eat, breathe, live this sport, and I think like alluded to what you said about the people that they don't really realize like how good I really was in my prime. Like I was pretty good back in the day. I might not be that good anymore. There was a time that I was pretty decent, and like I said, I had to race, the world's best riders, and racing RV and RD. Those guys were, definitely hard to race. They were very good riders and tough competitors.
Looking back, especially those early years, would you do anything different if you were to do it again? Would you go to pro circuit instead of KTM? Would you take it less serious, or what?
So that's an interesting question. So, kind of looking back on it, I mean, you can't go back on it now. Had things been different with a different team, a different situation, right? Yeah.
So everything seemed very intense for you every day back then?
People don't understand the KTM bike, and I'm going to be totally blunt. It was awful.
Okay.
It was terrible compared to the bikes now,
the
20 years
support,
later. If I was riding that bike now, back then, different story.
They were just coming in in America, weren't they?
There was no linkage.
That's right, yeah.
And the suspension was awful.
And it was more for GPs than American stuff, wasn't it?
And the dirt was totally different compared to the GPs, and the way they tilled it, ripped it. The tracks were different. And eventually, so I ended up getting David Philippart's suspension in 07. And as soon as we did that, then my results flipped.
Right.
And I was on the podium with RC and Bubba and riding good and almost won the title. So if I had things to do different, it would be easy to say, maybe pro circuit would have been a better option, or maybe factory Honda, which was obviously an offer. But at the time, I was 16. KTM offered me a very good contract, and it was hard to say no.
Yeah.
So I have no disappointments on my career. I mean, there could have been some championships, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, like, I'm still happy. I got a beautiful, beautiful wife, beautiful kids, and a beautiful home, and I just love racing. I just love it.
That's what I was going to say. Like Marek Pavorts was runner-up 4 times in the World Championship. Kurt Nickel,
Kurt Nickel was my team
that's
manager.
Right. He was probably able to help you out mentally with that sort of stuff.
He was my team manager when we almost won that title in 07 outdoors. That was that would have been pretty cool to reward him with a championship. Just like I said, things just sometimes they just don't go your way, and had it just been a little different here and there, we could have had 4 titles.
Yeah, you're not the only one to have to suffer this, I guess, so you can sort of take solitude.
It's part of the sport. You got to take the good with the bad.
Brilliant, Mike. Thank you very much, and all the best this weekend.
Thank you.